Chapter 1. The room at the end of the hall. The old iron gates of Rosewood Girls' Hostel creaked open with a reluctant groan, like they hadn't been moved in years. Anika clutched her suitcase tighter, her eyes tracing the ivy-covered stone walls that stretched upward into the misty, oody sky. The hostel looked more like a forgotten mansion than a place meant for young women to live and study. It was past 5 p.m., and the sun was already sinking behind the hills. A cool wind blew through the trees, whispering, as if sharing secrets only the mountains could understand. Anika shivered, not from the cold, but from something deeper, something instinctual. The driver dropped her bag and sped off without waiting for a thank you. She couldn't blame him. The place had a strange air to it, quiet, but not peaceful, still. Watching. Inside, the corridors were narrow and dimly lit, with tall ceilings and faded paintings of women in Victorian gowns. The wooden floor creaked under her boots as she followed the sound of footsteps ahead. "You must be Anika," a voice called out softly. She turned to find a tall woman in a beige cotton sari, her glasses perched on the tip of her nose and a clipboard in hand. "I'm Mrs. Iyer, the matron here. Come, I'll show you to your room." Anika followed her in silence, glancing at the faded walls and ornate brass fixtures that looked like they belonged in a different century. "Is the hostel always this quiet?" she asked, hesitantly. Mrs. Iyer gave a small, unreadable smile. "The girls stay busy, and we encourage early bedtimes. Keeps things simple." They reached the last door at the far end of the third floor. Room 309. The number was carved into the wood, slightly crooked, as if someone had tried to remove it once. "This is your room," Mrs. Iyer said. "Dinner is at 7 p.m. in the main hall. Do not stay out after lights out. We lock the corridors by 10. Anika nodded. "Thank you." But before Mrs. Iyer left, she paused. "If you hear anything unusual at night, ignore it. This building is old. It groans." And with that, she was gone. Anika turned the key and stepped inside. The room was small but neat. A single bed, an oak desk, and a window with heavy burgundy curtains that overlooked the forest below. It smelled faintly of sandalwood, and something else she couldn't quite place. A hint of old paper, ink, dust, time. That night, after unpacking, she lay in bed with her notebook open but untouched. Her phone showed no signal. The silence pressed down on her. And then, it happened. A soft knock. Not at the door. At the window. She sat up slowly. The curtains moved as if stirred by breath. Her heart pounded, but she found herself stepping toward it. She pulled them aside. Nothing. Only darkness. Trees swaying gently in the night wind. She let out a shaky breath and laughed to herself. But when she turned back to the bed, she froze. Her door, which she had locked, now hung slightly ajar. At the age of 39, she didn't hear footsteps. She didn't see anyone. But she felt it. Someone had been inside, was still watching. She whispered into the silence, her voice trembling. "Who's there?" No reply. Just the echo of the knock still ringing in her ears. Chapter 2. The Warden's Gaze. Anika barely slept that night. Each time she closed her eyes, she felt as though someone or something was inside her room. She kept the bedside lamp on, her fingers wrapped tightly around the edge of her blanket, listening for creaks, breathing, movement. But the silence remained undisturbed, almost cruel in its stillness. By morning, the knock on the window felt like a dream, a hallucination. But the unlocked door, that was real. After a quick, silent breakfast in the dining hall where girls chatted in clusters and cliques, Anika approached the main office to report the incident. She had barely raised her hand to knock when she heard a voice behind her. "You're new." She turned. He was taller than she'd expected, broad-shouldered, dressed in a plain black shirt and slacks, with silver at his temples and stubble lining his jaw. His eyes, sharp, unreadable, studied her with the intensity of a hawk. His name tag read, "Mr. Veer, Hostel Warden." Anika froze. For a moment, words failed her. "Yes," she managed. "I arrived yesterday. Room 309. "Ah," he nodded once. "Top floor, end of the hall." She waited for more, for any sign of warmth or friendliness, but his expression remained unreadable. I think someone came into my room last night," she said quietly. "The door was unlocked when I woke up, and I heard something at the window." Mr. Veer's eyes didn't waver. He stepped closer, and Anika felt the air between them shift, charged, heavier. "There's no access to the third-floor windows," he said slowly. "Not unless someone climbed the wall." Her heartbeat quickened. "Then how?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pocket and handed her a small silver key. "This is a secondary lock. Use it." She took it without speaking, her fingers brushing his. His touch was cool, controlled. But her skin tingled where they had touched. "Was it you?" she asked suddenly, surprising herself. He raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" "At my door," she said, forcing the words past the dryness in her throat. "Were you checking on the rooms last night?" There was a pause. His eyes locked on hers. "I don't enter rooms without permission," he said calmly, "unless there's an emergency." Then with a nod, he turned and walked away, leaving her staring at the echo of his presence. Back in her room that evening, Anika sat at her desk, trying to focus on a passage from her literature textbook, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the knock, the door, and the warden's gaze. There was something about him, aloof, strict, but undeniably magnetic, dangerous even. He was too controlled, too watchful. As the sky darkened and silence crept in again, Anika kept the key in her hand. She double-locked the door, drew the curtains tight, and sat on her bed. At exactly 2:13 a.m., it happened again. This time, no knock. Instead, her room filled with the scent of sandalwood. The air turned cooler, and she heard it, barely audible, a whisper. Her name not changed. Her breath caught. She looked around, heart pounding, eyes scanning the shadows. She didn't scream. She didn't move. But someone was in the room with her. And once again, the door was unlocked. Chapter 3. Midnight Whispers. Anika stood frozen in the middle of her room, her bare feet numb against the cold floorboards. The silence after the whispered name was deafening. Her pulse beat loud in her ears as she slowly reached for the bedside lamp and flicked it on. The room looked untouched. Nothing was out of place. But her instincts screamed otherwise. Someone had been there. She rushed to the door. The lock was undone. Again. She hadn't heard the knob turn, hadn't seen the latch move. But it had happened. She hadn't imagined it. She knew it. Clutching her shawl tight around her shoulders, Anika didn't think. She acted. She slipped out of her room and padded silently down the hallway, every wooden step moaning beneath her. She didn't know where she was going until she stopped in front of the warden's office. The door was slightly ajar. A faint yellow light glowed from inside. She hesitated only a second, then pushed the door gently. Mr. Veer was seated behind his desk, reading a worn leather-bound book. He looked up instantly, his dark eyes narrowing as he rose from his chair. "Iritis Vatovi, Miss Anika," he said. "Do you know what time it is?" She stepped inside, her voice trembling. It happened again. The door unlocked. I heard a voice. Someone whispered my name. He stared at her, then slowly closed the book. "You left your room?" "Yes, I had to. I didn't know what else to do." A muscle in his jaw twitched. He walked around the desk, coming to stand before her. "Did you see anyone?" "No. But it wasn't my imagination. Someone was there." She searched his face, desperate for understanding. "And I think they've been coming every night." He didn't speak for a long moment. Then, in a quieter voice, "You shouldn't have come here alone. This building has shadows." Her lips parted. "What do you mean?" "I mean some things. Don't stay buried." His tone was solemn, almost protective. Her eyes widened. "So it's true then. Something is wrong here." "I didn't say that." "But you believe me." He took a step closer, and for a second, Anika forgot how to breathe. He wasn't just intimidating, he was compelling. The scent of sandalwood clung to him faintly, and she realized with a jolt, it was the same scent that had filled her room. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Was it you?" His eyes darkened. "Do you want it to be?" She took a sharp breath. "What kind of question is that?" But her cheeks warmed, betraying her. The air between them charged with something forbidden. Via studied her, then looked away, breaking the spell. "Go back to your room, Anika. I'll check the hallway myself." She stood rooted for a moment longer, watching him reach for the flashlight on his desk, the hard set of his shoulders giving away the tension he carried. As she turned to leave, he called out softly, "Lock the door. This time, both locks." She nodded, closing the door behind her. Back in her room, she obeyed. Both locks clicked into place. But sleep didn't come easy. She lay in bed, eyes wide, heart beating to the rhythm of too many thoughts. She didn't understand what was happening. She didn't know who to trust. But one thing was certain now. Whatever haunted this hostel was not just a ghost. It was flesh and blood. It was memory. It was desire. And it was watching her. Chapter 4. The Locked Drawer. The next morning, the hostel buzzed with its usual quiet routine. Footsteps on wood, soft laughter over teacups, the occasional creak of an opening door. But Anika moved through it like a ghost, her mind trapped in the fog of last night. Had she imagined the whispered voice? Had Veer been lying or protecting something? During her literature class that afternoon, she couldn't focus. Her pen hovered uselessly over her notebook. Her professor's voice drifted around her like mist. Words meant nothing. After lunch, she made a decision. She had to know more about room 309. Back in her room, she pulled out her phone again. No signal. She opened her laptop. No Wi-Fi. The hostel was disconnected from the world, by design or coincidence, she couldn't tell. So she did the only thing she could, search the room itself. She started with the closet, then under the bed. Nothing unusual. But when she knelt before the oak desk and opened the drawer, she found something. A thin crack along the base of the drawer, hollow. Her fingers worked the edge until it popped open with a soft click. Inside was an envelope, yellowed and sealed with wax. Her hands trembled as she opened it. A letter. My dearest, I hear your footsteps at night. You wait until the corridor is still and the clocks have stopped. I know it's you who knocks at my window. I know it's you I dream of when I close my eyes. But they say we can't be together, that it's wrong. I don't care. Meet me again, after lights out. One last time. I need to feel your hands. Yours forever. And Anika reread the letter, heart pounding. It was old, maybe years, but someone had lived in this room before her. Someone who knew the same knocks. Someone who felt what she was beginning to feel. She was still staring at the letter when a knock came at the door. She jumped. Anika, Mr. Veer's voice. She rushed to hide the letter back in the drawer, closed it, and opened the door. He stood there, holding something in his hand. You left your scarf in my office, he said, offering the soft fabric. Thank you, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. But he noticed. You're pale. I didn't sleep well, she said, then paused. Do you remember who stayed in this room before me? His eyes narrowed slightly. What? I found a letter, she said before she could stop herself. It was hidden in the drawer. Someone wrote it to a man with the initial R. The tone was intimate. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, You should forget that letter. She frowned. Because the girl who wrote it vanished, without a trace. That night, Anika lay in bed, the letter heavy in her thoughts. Her skin tingled from the memory of Veer's voice, low, careful, carrying a burden he hadn't yet shared. She closed her eyes, tried to sleep, and once again, just past 2, a knock. But this time, not at the window. It was at the door. She sat up, heart racing. Who's there? She whispered. No answer. She crept to the door, hand shaking, and looked through the peephole. No. But when she stepped back, she noticed it tucked under the doorframe. A red rose, fresh, dew-kissed, and a note beneath it. You're not the first girl to feel this, but you might be the last. Anika gasped. Someone knew, someone was watching, and somewhere deep in her chest, beneath the fear, bloomed something even more dangerous. Long. Chapter 5. His hands. Her secrets. Anika couldn't stop staring at the rose. It rested on her desk, trembling slightly each time the wind brushed against the window pane. The note lay beside it, its ink smudged, ever so faintly, as if written in haste or emotion. You're not the first girl to feel this, but you might be the last. She didn't know what terrified her more, the implication that someone was watching her, or the fact that she was starting to feel something in return. That night, she couldn't study, couldn't eat. She kept glancing at the clock, watching the hours crawl toward midnight. And just before lights out, a knock came. This time it wasn't soft. Intentional? She opened the door before she could second-guess herself. It was him. Veer stood in the dim corridor, no flashlight this time, no official posture. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing strong forearms veined with tension. His eyes, usually guarded, were darker now, tired, stormy. Can I come in? He asked, his voice low. Anika stepped aside. The door closed behind him, a click echoing in the silence. Neither spoke. He walked to the window, pulled the curtains open just slightly, and looked out at the woods. Do you know why this building was never renovated? He asked. She shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper. No, because it hides too many things no one wanted uncovered. He turned to face her. That letter you found. I knew her. Anika's breath caught. Who was she? He hesitated. Mira, a final year student, Quiet, brilliant. She stayed in this room, and MJ, she was involved with someone she shouldn't have been. Her voice cracked. His jaw tightened. It was never supposed to happen. I was new. She was kind, lost, and I let my guard down. Anika stepped closer, unable to stop herself. And then, she disappeared, he said simply. One night, after lights out, no struggle, no note, just gone. Her heart pounded. And you think she was taken? I don't know, he admitted. But I do know the knocks started again the day you arrived, and the rose. He looked directly at her now. I didn't leave it. The room seemed to shrink around them. Her breath hitched. Then who did? She whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer. Close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. Close enough that his scent, sandalwood, and something deeper, wrapped around her. You should leave this place, Anika, he said hoarsely. You shouldn't be caught in something that started long before you arrived. But she didn't move away. Her eyes searched his. What if I don't want to leave? His hand lifted, slowly, deliberately brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. The touch made her tremble. You don't know what you're asking for, he murmured. Yes, I do, she replied, barely breathing. He leaned in, and for a moment the world stood still. But just as his lips nearly met hers, there was a sharp crash from the hallway, glass shattering. They both froze. Veer's entire body went tense. Stay here, he ordered, stepping back, already moving toward the door. He heard, but he was gone, and she was alone again. The window groaned in the wind. The rose was gone, and written on her mirror in hurried red letters. He loved her, too. And look what happened. Chapter 6. Beneath the mirror's message. The red writing on the mirror froze Anika in place. He loved her, too. And look what happened. Her reflection shimmered behind the words, pale and uncertain. The lipstick, if it was lipstick, streaked slightly at the bottom, as though whoever wrote it had been shaking. Or crying. Anika backed away. She scanned the room. Everything else was untouched. The window was still latched. The door had been closed until Veer left. Someone had been here. And once again, they hadn't made a sound. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she lay on her bed with the lamp burning, the letter and the note beside her, the memory of Veer's almost kiss still tingling on her lips. Fear swirled in her chest, but so did something else. Longing, craving, that ache that made her feel both alive and vulnerable. By morning, she'd made a decision. She would find Mira's story, all of it. After breakfast, Anika made her way to the old records room tucked in the basement wing. A forgotten space filled with dusty files and cobwebbed shelves. No one from the current administration seemed to visit it anymore, but Veer had once mentioned that student files were stored there. The door creaked as she pushed it open. Inside, dust motes danced like ghosts in the slivers of sunlight from high barred windows. She moved through stacks of faded folders, scanning names, years, initials. And finally, there it was. Mira Sinha, room 309. She sat on the floor and opened the file. The basic information was there. Admission forms, medical records, even a glowing recommendation from her literature professor. But one page stood out. A disciplinary report. dated 6 months before her disappearance. Inappropriate attachment suspected between student and hostel staff member. Alleged late-night encounters. Investigation closed without sufficient evidence. The staff member's name had been redacted, but Anika didn't need to guess. Her hands trembled. She closed the file and moved to return it, but another folder slipped from the shelf, landing open beside her. It was older, yellowed pages. The photo on the first page made her freeze. It was Mr. Veer. Younger, cleaner shaven, but the same intense eyes. The file was his. Transferred from administration post at Sristi Girls' Hostel after incident involving student disappearance. No charges filed. Subject maintains innocence. Recommended for reassignment under probationary terms. Her breath caught in her throat. He hadn't told her this. Veer hadn't just known Mira. He'd been investigated for her disappearance. Later that evening, Anika found him near the courtyard, checking on the generator. "Why, well, didn't you tell me?" she asked sharply. Veer turned, surprised by her tone. "Tell you what?" "That you were investigated," she hissed, stepping closer. "For Mira's disappearance." He stiffened. "You went into the records room?" "I had to, because I'm the one now getting the same letters, the same knocks, the same—" she hesitated, her voice dropping. "Feelings." His eyes searched hers, shadowed with guilt. "Anika, I hurt her, I swear. I loved her, but I never crossed the line." She could hear the sincerity in his voice, but the doubt still clung to her chest like smoke. "Then who did?" "I don't know," he said quietly, "but I've spent every year since trying to find out. They moved me here to bury it, but the truth still haunts this place." Her voice cracked. "And now it's following me." He stepped forward. His hand cupped her cheek gently, thumb brushing the curve of her jaw. "I would never let anything happen to you," he whispered. "You have to trust me." Anika leaned into his touch, trembling. "I want to," she said, "but I'm scared." "So am I," he admitted, "of losing another girl I care about." Their lips met. Not a kiss of passion, but of grief, of fear, of forbidden tenderness. A kiss suspended in shadow and silence. And in that moment, they both knew whatever haunted the hostel wasn't finished yet, and it wanted them both. Chapter 7. The Hidden Photograph. Anika woke the next morning with Veer's kiss still haunting her lips. The warmth of his touch lingered on her skin like an invisible brand, but wrapped in the sweetness of that forbidden moment was the bitter sting of truth. He hadn't told her everything, and someone or something was still watching them. At breakfast, the other girls chatted idly about assignments and Netflix, but the moment Anika stepped into the dining hall, the room shifted, quieted. A few girls exchanged glances. Whispers followed her. Word was spreading. She got her friend Tara at the tea table and asked, "What's going on?" Tara hesitated, then leaned in. "They're saying you've been seen, late at night, near the courtyard, talking to him." Her cheeks flushed. "It's not what they think." Tara looked nervous. "This place has rumors, Anika. They never die. They just go quiet, and then wake up again." Later that day, Anika sat alone in her room, staring at the mirror where the message had once been. It was clean now, but she couldn't stop seeing those words etched in red. She needed air. Hetty, Dae-hong wandered the halls until she found herself outside the warden's quarters. Veer's room. He wasn't there. She hesitated at the door. Should she? The handle turned easily. The room was neat. bare, but heavy with the scent of him. Sandalwood, ink, rain-soaked earth. On his desk were neatly stacked papers and a drawer slightly ajar. Curiosity clawed at her. Inside was a journal. She opened it. Pages of scrawled handwriting, notes, sketches of a woman. Mira, letters, unsent. Then, in the back, tucked between pages, a photo. Anika froze. It was her. Standing in the courtyard, unaware, the photo had been taken from behind a window, in secret. Written beneath it, "She reminds me of her." Anika's heart slammed against her ribs. Her fingers trembled as she held the photograph. She backed away, colliding with the desk, knocking over a metal pen holder. It clattered to the floor, and underneath it, a second photo slid out. This one was of Mira. She wore the same scarf Anika had found folded neatly in her own drawer the first day she moved in. The same room. Same scarf. Same case. And then she realized something else. The curtain in Mira's photo, the pattern was different. It wasn't room 309. It was Veer's room. That night, Anika didn't sleep. Instead, she waited in silence, the photo of herself now hidden inside her pillowcase. Her heart beat so loudly, she thought it might give her away. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the knock came again. 3 soft taps. Like a lover's secret code. But this time, she didn't freeze. She stood and opened the door. And no one was there, except a trail of rose petals. Fresh. Blood red, leading down the hallway. Barefoot, wearing only her long nightgown, she followed them. Past the old paintings, past the creaky stairwell, until they ended at the attic door. She had never seen it open before. Tonight, it stood ajar. Inside, only darkness. A voice called softly from within. Anika? She turned to run, but a hand caught her wrist. Warm, familiar. Via. Why, what are you doing here? He whispered. I should ask you that, she said, trembling. But he didn't answer. Keo looked past her, toward the open attic, and whispered, that door hasn't opened in 10 years. Chapter 8. The Attic That Remembers. The silence in the corridor stretched like a scream. Anika stood frozen, her wrist still wrapped in Veer's hand, both of them staring at the dark mouth of the attic. The rose petals stopped just at the threshold, like a trail that dared her to enter, but warned her not to. That door, he whispered again, was nailed shut after Mira disappeared. Anika swallowed hard. Then who opened it? They stepped inside, together. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of mothballs and forgotten stories. Dust floated in beams of moonlight that slipped through narrow slats in the roof. The wooden floor creaked beneath their steps. Everything felt wrong, like the attic wasn't part of the hostel, but a separate, sleeping entity. Look, Anika whispered, pointing. At the far end of the attic was a trunk, locked, with 2 latches, but the padlock had been snapped, rusted out. Veer knelt beside it and slowly lifted the lid. Inside lay old uniforms, scarves, a pair of torn notebooks, and on top of everything, a worn-out journal with the initials M.S. Anika's throat tightened. Mira Sinha. Veer opened it. The first few pages were blank. Then came the entries. I know he watches me. I know he listens when I sleep. But the truth is, I don't want him to stop. Anika's eyes widened. He's supposed to protect us. but I see how he looks at me. I hear his footsteps when the hallway is dark. Sometimes, I pretend I don't hear him knock. Sometimes, I open the door. The entries blurred together in Anika's vision. He said he loved me last night. I believed him. I still do. But I found the other scarf, the same as mine, in a drawer that isn't mine. And the photos, of her, of me. He said it was just a mistake. But what if I'm just the next one? What if she was the first? Anika felt faint. Her legs gave out, and she sank to the attic floor. Veer placed a hand on her shoulder. She thought someone else had been here before her, Anika whispered. Someone who wore her scarf. Someone he watched. Veer's voice was tight. That's not possible. She was the only one I ever... He stopped himself. The air shifted. They turned and realized there was something else behind the trunk. A small wooden door, hidden, unpainted, a crawl space. Anika reached for the latch, but Veer stopped her. "Let me," he said. He opened it slowly, and behind it, they found a forgotten room. No windows, no lights, just a mattress, a mirror, and on the wall, hundreds of photos. Polaroids stuck with yellowing tape. Girls, sleeping, dressing, laughing, unaware. Anika's blood turned to ice. Each photo had a name beneath it, and there, in the center of them all, was hers. Fresh, pinned recently. Beneath it, Anika D. Room 309, 11:43 p.m. She stumbled back, horror rising in her throat. "Veer, did you take these?" "No," he said, pale, trembling. "I swear on everything I am... No." "But they're from inside the hostel. I've never even seen this room before." A sound rang out behind them. The attic door slammed shut. They spun around. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, coming up the stairs. Anika's breath came in shallow gasps. "We're not alone," she whispered. Veer stepped in front of her, protective, his body tense. And from the dark staircase, a voice called out. Low, familiar, but not Veer's. "I warned you not to fall for another one, Veer." Anika's heart nearly stopped. Because it wasn't a ghost. It was the headmistress. Chapter 9. The Secret Keeper. The headmistress emerged from the shadows, her silhouette framed by the flickering attic light. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "You never did know when to stop, Veer." Veer stepped back, shielding Anika instinctively. "It was you," he said. "You were the one behind all of it." A cold smile touched her lips. "You think I enjoyed playing the villain? You think I wanted to clean up after the mess you made 10 years ago?" Anika stepped forward, anger shaking her voice. "He didn't do it. He loved Mira." The headmistress scoffed. "Love?" Her tone dripped with disdain. "You think love explains secret rooms and photos of sleeping girls?" Veer's voice cracked. "You've been setting me up." She laughed bitterly. "I saved you. Twice. When Mira vanished, they were ready to hang you. I buried the truth to save the hostel's name. And you? You brought another girl into the same trap." She looked at Anika with something almost like pity. "You were supposed to be the last. I let her stay in that room for a reason. You needed to remember, Veer. What happens when you let your feelings blind you?" Anika's voice was barely a whisper. "You knew Mira was in love with him?" The headmistress nodded slowly. "Mira came to me the night before she vanished. She told me she was going to run away with him, that they had plans." She turned to Veer, eyes shining with something cruel. But she never made it out, did she? Anika gasped. You killed her. No, she said sharply. She died falling down those cursed attic stairs when she came to meet him that night. I found her broken body. He never saw it. I made sure of that. Because if anyone knew, everything would have fallen apart. Veer's face contorted with shock and grief. You hid her death and blamed me? I protected you, she snapped, until you brought another girl into it. Until I found your file open again. Until the trail started all over. Anika's voice rose. And the letters? The lipstick on the mirror? The knocks? That was all you? The headmistress tilted her head. No, that part wasn't me. Silence. Chilling. The three of them froze. And then, the mirror in the secret attic room shattered. No hands touched it, just a sudden crack, like a scream breaking through glass. A wind, cold and unnatural, swept through the crawlspace, knocking over stacks of photographs. And on the wall behind the broken mirror, a message burned into the wood, written in faded red. You can hide my body, not my truth. Anika screamed. The lights above burst in a cascade of sparks. The headmistress staggered back, her eyes wide. No, this can't be. The attic door slammed again, locking them in, and from every photo on the wall, the eyes seemed to bleed. Veer grabbed Anika's hand. We have to go, now. They ran down the stairs as the attic groaned like a beast releasing its breath. Behind them, the headmistress cried out, I saved her! I saved the school! And then, silence. When they reached the hall, the attic door was gone, as if it had never existed. 2 weeks later, the hostel shut down for structural repairs. But the truth was louder than ever now. Police found the remains of Mira's body buried beneath the old crawlspace. The headmistress had vanished. Her quarters were abandoned. Every photo in that hidden room was confiscated, along with the files Veer had kept. Anika gave her statement. So did Veer, but the authorities couldn't explain everything. Not the wind, not the blood, not the writing